Asha, you may begin.
Hey, good evening and welcome everyone to our Community Advisory Committee meeting. We are being live streamed on our YouTube channel, and we welcome everyone who is joining us virtually. Thank you so much for being here this evening. I will first turn it over to Bart Schwartz to open the meeting.
I appreciate that, Asha. And for the first time, I'm probably going to be within the limits that you set for me. So I just want to thank everyone for being on the meeting and in the middle of the summer. I know I'm glad we were able to do it, even if it's remote. It's still important that this group get together because it continues to provide help and advice across the portfolio. And I'm very pleased and proud of what you've all accomplished. So I'm going to just turn it back to Asha. Is it to you? And just to say thank you and not to take time away from all of the work that you all have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Bart. So I wanted to first talk through what the agenda will be for this evening. You should have all received a copy, but we will first begin with our Regional Administrator for Region 2, New York City and New Jersey from HUD, Alika Samuels. And then we will hear from our representative from Brownsville Partnership, from Community Partnerships Director, Noelle Myers-Powell. And then we'll hear updates from our representatives from NYCHA. And then we'll hear from Representative Manny Martinez, who is our Resident Association President from Queens. And then we will turn the microphone over to all of our members to please give updates on the things that you think are pertinent for our committee to know and be updated on. And then we'll have a discussion time for any remaining issues. So with that, I will turn it over to Alika to give opening remarks, please.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Asha, for the invite. I'll just be really brief. I just wanted to just give some quick updates from HUD, and I'm not sure if everyone knows, but Secretary Fudge has been to New York City quite a few times since she's been in the administration. And honestly speaking, when I speak to some of the other RAs across the country, they have a lot to say about how many visits we receive from officials at HUD. And even next week, if I'm not mistaken, our Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary, Rich Minocchio, along with our G-Dash, Dominique Blum, will be in town. And not only will they have a meeting with some of the residents and officials, they'll also be attending some of the family days. And I'll be accompanying them on some tours on Friday and family days on Saturday. But Secretary Fudge was here 2 weeks ago, July 27th and 28th. And on Thursday, the 27th, she met with NYCHA CEO Lisa Bova-Hyatt, as well as Deputy Mayor Maria Torres Springer, who now has the entire housing portfolio. And she met with them for almost an hour, about 45 minutes. And it was just to hear what the city and what NYCHA has going on and what they've requested from HUD. And following that meeting, that sit-down meeting, she had a meeting with the executive board of CAC. And that meeting lasted well over an hour, almost about an hour and a half. And that conversation was pretty much a follow-up to her commitment when she was here December of 2021. She made a commitment to have an open line of communication with the resident leaders. And so that was part of that commitment. And so again, on Thursday, the meetings that she had on Thursday was exclusively NYCHA. And then on Friday, she had a meeting with developers and clergy members, and then rang the closing bell at the stock exchange. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention because we have a secretary who is really dedicated to listening to and hearing the voices of our residents that live in HUD assisted properties. And you don't hear that a lot. You don't get that feeling in every single administration. And so I just wanted to, just let everyone know that she continues to be dedicated and committed to hearing from tenant residents. And on that same day, the administration, the Biden-Harris administration, announced $10 million towards tenant advocacy, tenant outreach, tenant education. And so out of that funding, it's not just for, it's exclusive, it's for everyone across the country, $10 million, so it's not a lot, but it's really to speak to listening to what are the issues that our residents are having on the ground, and being able to provide some level of feedback to the agency so we can get an understanding of what we need to do, what kind of policies are in place that may be a barrier or a hindrance that could be changed. And so under that notice of funding, there's also a public comment period. And so we can maybe share that information with everyone on the call later on in the email. But we're also looking for public comments and hearing from residents about what can we do better at HUD. And I just kind of like scrolling through my notes quickly. When I jumped on the call, Mr. Gross, you were talking about doors and safety and security. And that came up as part of the conversation with the secretary from the executive board members. And we not only talked about the doors, but the conversation went into the procurement process of the doors, how much they cost. The conversation led to what's happening with the procurement process around, are you contracting with contractors with the best, like the best contract, or is it the lowest bid contract? And so that came out as well. And so, there's some follow-up, there's more to come with that. But again, I just wanted to emphasize the level of a priority that NYCHA has with this administration and this secretary. And so I'll stop there. I look forward to seeing whoever's on the ground when the assistant secretaries from PIH are in town and getting out to those family days over the next couple of weeks. So back to you, Asha.
Thank you so much, and thank you for those updates. I know that Bart Schwartz will be joining the HUD representatives on some of those family day visits, so we're excited about that. And it's also good to hear the commitment from the administration for resident advocacy. And that's really important. So I encourage all of our members to participate in the public comment period, and we look forward to getting that information. So thank you for sharing that as well. So with that,
if I may, I would just like to say that the secretary has been very attentive to the needs of NYCHA, and that's appreciated. And I'll also be meeting with the number of the people when they come in later this month in August, and I'm looking forward to that as well. Thank you.
And Asha, just one last thing, and I just have to say this because, I'm just brutally honest. We get a lot of calls and complaints and emails, and we do our best to follow up, sometimes through the Federal Monitor's Office, sometimes through NYCHA, sometimes through just our staff going out. And in June, we got a request to meet with the residents of Eastchester houses to meet with their board. With the entire resident board. The president requested our attendance. And so I contacted the folks from DC. They got on the plane, came to New York City, and the president canceled the meeting on the same day. And we had all of the forces in Eastchester, in the Bronx. And so, we do everything we can to show up. I just want to just be mindful and let folks know that when we show up, it'll be really good to make sure that everybody on the other end show up as well. Because, you know how to go. I see you, Mr. Hall. But I just had to say that because it's still like, oh.
I just want to interject. I'm very sorry that Mr. Ramsey did what he did.
It's okay.
Once again, it goes back to truly understanding the Federal Monitor and how important this entire operation is. And in Bronx North, I'm like the lonesome dove. I'm the only one that really knows, and I can't get it across to them. So I'm going to apologize on behalf of Eastchester.
No.
We're going to be ready for you. All right. You
It's
come
all
on
good.
back.
It's all
Okay.
good. All right, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you for leadership and your continued commitment. Now I'd like to turn to our NYCHA representatives to get updates, particularly as it relates to things that interface with the residents. Who would like to go first?
And I was gonna say, who would you like to go first? I thought I saw Manoush first, and I went
Okay.
first last, Manoush, so you could go first.
I was planning, I was planning to talk about the capital tracker. So I don't know.
Yes, please update us on that.
Sure. So yeah, we've been talking about this at the CAC meetings last few months. We don't have a launch date yet. We were expecting to have that this month, but I think it's probably going to be sometime during the fall. And hopefully for the next CAC meeting, we can have somebody from Capital join us and do the instructional demo video on how to navigate the site. But I wanted to give a brief summary of the feedback that will be implemented because they did hold these working groups with different groups in the last few months and collected that feedback and were able to implement many of the suggestions. So there will be a demo instructional video on how to use the website. That will be part of the launch. There were suggestions on design that we had discussed. I think it was during the CAC group. I think there was confusion about how to find a project budget. So that's been addressed. The distinction between finding capital needs versus projects is clearer now. And also there had been a question about getting to the project page from the development page, also addressed, implemented. There had been a suggestion about the color contrast and, to align that with the visual accessibility, addressed. It was tested with Firefox browser. I think that was Edna's request, if I recall. So yes, and also to include a link to the NYC open data, that will also be part of the launch. Now, in terms of the actual launch and implementation, they will be conducting demos at the property visits by the strategic partnership teams. They'll be conducted at the beginning of the regular meetings with the resident leaders and property managers. A link to the tracker will be available on My NYCHA. I think that had also been a suggestion. Additionally, Capital is considering other options for rolling out the launch. So there will be webinar demos organized by resident services, as well as the Intergov department. There will be communication from our communications department, and then demos with CAC, CCOP, resident advisory board, roundtable meetings. There had been also a suggestion about conducting a demo with the council members, which I've discussed that with the Capital team. They're happy to schedule that as well. And they have asked me to ask for other suggestions. So if anyone has any other ideas now or later, please reach out to me so we can get the word out.
Yeah, this is great. And that Alika is online and Nancy is online. These are the founding mothers of the trackers. So it's just a wonderful example of the collective will to get this done. The one thing that I keep hearing, and that Abigail, who's fabulous, and Sean, who's really receptive, are trying to address, is the completeness of the tracker. We know there are links to Sandy, there are links to I think local law 11 projects, but the one thing that's a noticeable absence are the projects that are managed by operations. They're not included. And so we would like to move on that aspect to just so that at least we could say the tracker includes all of NYCHA manage projects. That would be a fabulous thing to be able to say. So, and we've been talking about it, so this is not new. But again, this is really good news on the progress of it.
Excellent. So are there any barriers for the initial launch in the fall? Or
They're
just
working with the stakeholders to figure out rollout. But yeah, hopefully by October, we should have rollout or launch date.
excellent. Well, thank you for keeping us updated. We're glad to see the progress on that. Really important, I think, for transparency and for keeping particularly resident leaders who are, really instrumental in these projects to really know the status. So I know that'll be well appreciated. Thank you. Samantha, I know you're going to give the lion's share of the updates on behalf of your department, if you would, please.
Sure. So I just wanted to apologize. There's always fires to put out at NYCHA, and there's an emergency at Cooper Park, and so Leroy had to head there. And so I'll be giving his updates as well as mine. So I'm just going to share the screen so that I can give the updates on the new structure for resident participation and civic engagement, which was formerly our resident engagement department. We are now ready to go ahead and share that organization, that reorg of our department. Please tell me if you can.
Tomorrow or Thursday?
Please let me know.
Chief DePrito, if you could go on mute, please.
Yeah.
And Samantha, we can see your slides.
Okay, awesome. And I just want to make it a little bigger. Is that better?
It is better. Thank you.
Okay, so we are currently headed by Leroy Williams. He is our VP. And we have right now a current vacancy for senior director. And then reporting up to the senior director, we do have a special assistant. And then under the senior director is a deputy director. I report into as the strategic planning manager, and then there's a secretary for the entire department. And then under the neighborhood service model, we are broken out into neighborhoods according to the neighborhood service model by borough. So Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Queens and Staten Island are together. And those are all managed by project managers for each of those boroughs. Again, Queens, Staten Island is together. And then under those borough managers are neighborhood service coordinators. The neighborhood service coordinators liaise with the resident association leaders. On the other side of the house, we also have a senior manager for budget and compliance. This is the person who oversees all TPA funding, et cetera, for resident associations. That position is currently vacant, but then we have coordinators under that person, an analyst, and also a procurement analyst on the financial side, and they take care of all of the bills for our department as well. And right now we do have 2 full vacancies in our neighborhood service coordinators because we have 2 people on long-term medical leave. And besides those 2 people who are on medical leave, we have 2 vacancies for neighborhood service coordinators in Brooklyn. Hopefully we'll be bringing on 1 person that was interviewed, processed, et cetera, next week that we're really excited about. Any questions on the reorg before I get into?
Yes, actually, can you say a little bit more, Samantha, please, about, I know that there's the neighborhood service coordinators, and it seems like things are more neighborhood focused. How, as a practical matter, is that different from the prior structure?
So the prior structure, one community coordinator could be stretched in multiple boroughs. So someone could be covering tenant associations or resident associations in Manhattan and the Bronx and have to travel. This person also may live in Queens. And so you live in Queens, you should really be field-based. You're assigned to resident associations in the Bronx and Manhattan It kind of doesn't make sense. And so this new position, we have the coordinators focused on a specific neighborhood so that they can give more individualized attention to a said community, if you will. Certain community needs may be different. And so they can be more focused in that regard. And they also had a choice a little bit, maybe for their comfort. We want them to be less office-based, more field-based. And so, a lot of consideration went into the staff recommendations, suggestions, where they live, their seniority, communities that they've been familiar with, that they've been working in for a long time. We took all of that into consideration. Also had several conversations with resident and association leaders and their relationships with current staff. And there was, a lot of push-pull, people really developed relationships. And so we considered all of that in developing this model. Every department, as necessary and as it makes sense in NYCHA, is going under the neighborhood service model because it makes sense to do it by community and by neighborhood. And so this was our version in RPCE.
That makes good sense. That's great to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. And so just more about RPC, resident participation and civic engagement. Our mission overall is to empower NYCHA residents to participate in decision-making processes and ensure residents' needs and concerns are integrated into NYCHA's transformation plan. So I work on this a whole lot because I manage all of the resident-facing groups, but that is the mission of every single employee in resident participation and civic engagement. We want to be advocates on behalf of residents. And so our 5 key areas of work are conducting resident association elections. We also engage resident leadership groups. So that's the Resident Advisory Board, the Citywide Council of Presidents, and the Resident Roundtable, which are in my house, in my shop. I manage those 3 groups, as well as sit here on the CAC. We also support NYCHA initiatives and projects. We work very efficiently with the capital projects team, with sustainability initiatives and other resident-centered efforts by serving as a thought partner to develop strategies to engage residents. So we always work in tandem with other groups to best engage residents. Sometimes we are the gatekeepers, if you will, on how to engage residents best, which residents to engage, bringing residents together to give feedback. That's kind of our expertise and our wheelhouse. And then we do the financial piece. I showed you on the previous slide that we administer TPA and councilmatic funds through our TPA coordinators. What we did differently now is the neighborhood service coordinators are not a part of this process anymore. We have focused staff who their main function is to process all TPA proposals and TPA funding. In this way, proposals can get processed quicker. The monies can get into the hands of the resident leaders in a more efficient and effective way. Processing receipts and all of that stuff. And then the neighborhood service coordinators can focus more on addressing other needs of the resident association leaders. And then we also implement programs. We work with private partners and funders on different initiatives and different programs for youth, for seniors. It runs the gamut on community programming, just to bring resources to residents and work with residents in implementing programs all across the city. So that is our 5 key areas. There are other things that we do and that we get asked to do, but these are the key functions of RPCE. And last but not least, on the resident roundtable, there's not much to update right now, but we are fiercely in outreach this summer. in 4 areas that Roundtable is focusing on. They are focusing on development, outreach, and beautification, resident services and engagement, safety and security, as always, and also resident outreach. And so the resident Roundtable members will be going out into their neighborhoods, because they are also divided by neighborhood according to the neighborhood model, and we'll be liaising resident to resident in those areas, asking what residents would like to see in those areas, and getting feedback in a real way. So as opposed to surveying this summer, the resident Roundtable members will be having conversations. We felt like it would be more real to get a more tangible feedback by having residents maybe give a statement anonymously or not. Maybe they want to tape a statement on video. Maybe they want to just give a statement with their voice. Maybe they want to just write a statement. Whatever it is, we want residents to ask resident to resident, about, their outlook and what they want to see as a resident moving forward toward transformation and implementation, actually, of transformation at NYCHA. And so we're excited. Hopefully, when we meet again in the CAC in October, we'll have an update and maybe something to show regarding this outreach that they are feverishly collecting over the summer. And that is my update.
Thank you so much for that, Samantha. I know our team members from the monitor team have had the opportunity to sit in on the resident roundtable meetings, and it really is tremendous the work that they are all doing and the thought leadership that the residents are bringing to these important topics. And if you could say a little bit more about NYCHA's engagement in the other areas in your particular subgroup as it relates to the Resident Association Board and CCOP. How is that going?
Sure. So it is going well. We work very closely with the CCOP to come up with topics, right? Whatever it is that CCOP wants addressed, same way as we do it in the other resident facing groups. CCOP is the leaders. They manage us. they manage all of the kind of NYCHA feedback from a resident standpoint. And so that is going well. I think that the meeting with Secretary Fudge was a great boost back 2 weeks ago. And so we're looking forward to, what's to come. I know we meet every week with CCOP. This week we are having an update on safety and security. We are also partnering with a organization that does life stories clubs among seniors, and we're rolling that out soon. And so that presentation is going to come to the CCOP this month as well. And so, we're just delighted to, move forward with the CCOP and, have them guide us into what we can do best for residents moving forward.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you for these updates. Does anyone have any questions for Manoush or Samantha before we move on?
Yeah, I have one, if I may. Where are you covering resident conduct? Where does that fit?
Sorry, you said resident what?
Conduct.
Interesting you asked that, because that is our August 17th meeting with CCOP. We are going over resident code of conduct and implementing resident code of conduct. There's a code of conduct for CCOP. We will be rolling that out once it's stamped and approved by CCOP, NYCHA law, etc., and then rolling that out. So yes, that is coming. That is coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that part. And
Robert
Mr.
Hall has a question.
Yeah, see. Mm-hmm.
I'm in search of transparency. All right. And the reason I'm saying that is in Bronx North, you have an executive board, and the presumption is most of the members are in PAC. You only, with the exception of one member, all the members are in PAC except for the chair and one other member. So they are heading in different directions. You know, I don't want to make an excuse for Eastchester Gardens, but that might have been one of the reasons why they canceled out when they tried to get Marsha Fudge to come up. We need more transparency because there's only been one meeting since January in Bronx North for whatever reason whatsoever. So I understand what you've done and what I'm seeing, but I'm just going to tell you what is being delivered and what is actually going on. So maybe you can look into that because folks in Bronx North just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, we can definitely address that, and we will address that with the chair for Bronx North.
Okay.
We will do that because we do have a calendar of each district's meetings. And so if we didn't know that, I'm glad we know that now. We will definitely address that with the chair of Bronx North because you are supposed to be meeting. Absolutely.
Thank you.
And that's a part of actually the code of conduct that Mr. Swartz just mentioned. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. We will definitely address that.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Swartz.
Mhm. Samantha, I have another question, and it's kind of earlier in your presentation, but when you're talking about the new model of the department, I'm wondering, for a resident that just has a problem that hasn't been addressed by the CCC, they're not getting responsiveness from the development, and they want to elevate it to NYCHA, is there a particular advocate in that model that they are designated to reach out to, and how do they know who to reach, et cetera?
Yes, written into the neighborhood service coordinator's new job description is to be that advocate. So across RSPI, we are working cross departmentally to come up with a one-pager actually for every single development, and that flyer absolutely has to have who the neighborhood service coordinator is so that every resident in the development knows who that is, can see it, and that person is supposed to be their advocate. That is written into their job description. Yep.
Great, thank you. That's great to hear.
You're welcome.
Excellent.
And then and a part of it is, of course, you have to start with the ticket. Did you go to the CCC, right? If you did all of those steps and then, nothing has happened, and now, right, this is your person who escalates. They've done this already, but now it's written into the job description as, a part of their job that they have to do this. So, yeah, it's not just a courtesy anymore. It's a responsibility.
That's good to hear.
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you so much for those important updates. And now I would like to give the microphone to Noelle Myers-Powell, who will be giving us a presentation, continuing our focus on outreach efforts with residents.
Awesome. Well, hello, everyone. Good evening. As Asha mentioned, my name is Noelle Myers-Powell, and I am the Community Partnerships Director from the Brownsville Partnership. Just in case for those who might be familiar with us or might not be familiar with the BP, we are a place-based nonprofit organization located in the heart of Brownsville, Brooklyn. And I think, very much relevant to today's topic of resident engagement and resident leadership. Our organization was actually founded by a resident, a local leader and organizer by the name of Greg Jackson. And something we always try to do at the core of our work, whatever projects we're a part of or initiatives, always making sure that it's resident centered and that we're creating opportunities to put residents in the decision-making and driver's seat. And I think this, very much relates to the update I'm excited to share today about some of our engagement work at Sethlo and what that's kind of led to for the BP. So this is from 2017. This was back at Sethlo in 2017, we were working with the Resident Association because they had created this really wonderful survey to get a better understanding of, what kinds of repairs were needed at Sethlo, and kind of thinking bigger picture, what kinds of housing principles the residents wanted to see kind of for the future of Sethlo and on their NYCHA campus. This was turned into a really stellar report, and the work kind of, I don't say it got paused at this point, but for other reasons, and the pandemic being a big piece of it, it wasn't the right time for the kind of next steps for this work. In 2022, though, were able to relaunch the work. The Resident Association had reached back out to the Brownsville Partnership and wanted to update the work that had happened in 2017. It had been 5 years, so we wanted to make sure that kind of what the priorities were set by residents was up to date. And so we kind of teamed up. We employed a team of 10 community ambassadors that were all Sethlo residents. And we worked together on and designing an engagement process to collect kind of 4 pieces of information from residents, which was, what are the priorities for repairs from the unit to the building to the campus level? What kind of programming folks want to see? How can we rethink and redesign our shared spaces? And what is or what should be the role for residents to participate in property management? And I will preface this by saying that this update today is not, the report from what came out of all of that feedback work. The report's maybe 95% of the way done. And so when that's in a place where we can share it, we'd love to do like a part 2 to this, but I want to make sure first that we share it back to the community with the RA and our ambassadors first, and then would love to share it with our community partners. But today's more about the approach with resident engagement and leadership. So just wanted to share this, just move you guys over. So this was kind of the year of engagement, and this process, I do want to say, was designed with our representatives from the Resident Association as well as our community ambassador team. We started with establishing a project charter just to outline kind of roles, responsibilities, what does our timeline look like, how are we holding ourselves accountable. We kicked off with a couple, general meetings to get a baseline understanding of where residents' priorities and kind of thoughts were at the start, but also to make sure they knew kind of who was working on this project, who the RA was working with, the Brownsville Partnership, who our community ambassadors are, who the staff was, and, just making sure everyone knew that this project was happening. Some of the other engagement opportunities we did throughout the year, we hosted a learning exchange, which maybe some folks from this group might have attended. We hosted a group called Poplar Harka, who are from East London, a community that's kind of similar to Brownsville. They have a really amazing model where they've created different layers of governance for residents to hold leadership positions, to be able to provide feedback and to make decisions all the way from the top to the neighborhood level in their properties. And so they came here to share more about their model, both to NYCHA leadership as well as to the Brownsville community. In the kind of end of fall, beginning of the winter, we focused on design. So we led visioning sessions, thinking about the interior, so the units, the lobbies, the community spaces. In the kind of December time, we did focus groups with young people and another with males 18 and above, because, especially the ambassadors had realized that many of those kind of previous meetings, we didn't see those groups really well represented and want to make sure their voices were included. So those groups kind of explore the exterior design. So what can we do with our existing shared spaces? How can we enhance and use some of the space that's kind of sitting there unused but has a ton of potential? So at the end of the winter, early spring, there was a little bit less of these kind of formal events. We had some key meetings with the RA. We did meet with Alika and her team at HUD to learn more about RMCs, Resident Management Corporations. Again, in this kind of process of trying to learn about all the different opportunities there are for residents to have a role in property management. But the reason I highlighted that one piece towards the bottom that talks about the tickets is because in that kind of piece, the community ambassadors acknowledge that, we need to keep the momentum and trust around this project. And while, it's great to have these conversations about the future, people are saying, well, this is great and we're excited to participate in this, but what about right now? And I know that's not something that's a surprise to anyone in this group. And so, our community ambassadors were were really awesome about helping people with the follow-up, helping to escalate tickets that were very overdue, and helping residents kind of not get discouraged and kind of navigate the process to put in multiple tickets for kind of these larger repairs that were needed. Last piece, we did do some CPTED activities, crime prevention through environmental design. We did a couple walking tours during the day and the evenings with residents to get a sense of, where people feel safe, where they don't feel safe, and how we can redesign some of those spaces to enhance safety. Some of the pieces that came, for the BP kind of like lessons learned or things that we kind of thought were important. I think this really echoes with the presentation that occurred right before mine. Having a project charter, having that kind of partnership agreement and kind of the accountability from the start, right? the big thing that we learned is making sure we're meeting with the full resident association throughout the process. Having representatives is fantastic, but you want to make sure that everyone on the board is informed of the progress, their voices are shared, and also too, if someone, if someone is busy and they're doing other things, that you always have a kind of a second, third, fourth point of contact. If possible, when you can, employing community ambassadors. The team was a group of 10. They were amazing individuals, all different ages and kind of experiences in Seth Low. But the best part what really was that they helped to really build trust quickly, because this is their community. This whole process I shared here, this was all designed with them. And facilitated with them. And I'm proud of that because for them, they really kind of took the lead and drove this and were leaders in this process. But I also don't think that anything I would have came up with would have been as interesting or as impactful or as engaging for this community without doing it with the community ambassadors. And the last piece is, what we found was important was finding ways to address those short-term issues, which for us, what kept coming up was those repairs, if you want to be able to have those conversations about the future. Which just brings to this last piece is, the Brownsville Partnership. We're very inspired by this work at Seth Low and just our general work in Brownsville with the various public housing campuses. And this is an existing program that we have called Community Action for Healthy Homes, or CAC for short. We're in our second year of this program. It's a methodology we were trained on by a group called Health Habitat out in Australia. And it's this idea of identifying, fixing, and tracking of repairs that are attached or have an impact on someone's individual health. And so, the way that the types of repairs they're looking for usually fall either in one or more of these categories of 9 healthy living practices. And the way that it works, so the top is kind of business as usual. The way the Community Action for Healthy Homes program is on the bottom. And so we have a team of residents, this is all resident driven, a team of residents who were trained to do surveys. They go into a unit or to a private home where we've gotten a referral. They do about 30-minute survey. They look for about 250 different things, right? They can impact someone's health. The cool part is they're actually trained to do some of those small fixes in real time. The reason that's important is because so many people have been surveyed millions of times and you don't see anything happen for months, if anything at all. And so we believe in no survey without service. There are some fixes we can do in real time. We do those. For the ones that are bigger, the ones that require electricians and carpenters and and contractors and more licensed and experienced individuals, we then work with locally vetted groups who then over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we work with the tenant to get an appointment to ensure the work's being done. And then after those 2 to 3 weeks, we come back and do another survey to see, 1, what the quality of work is, and 2, if there's anything else that needs to be done. The last slide I have here is just to share what kinds of repairs are being done. So the first column, you can see these are the types of repairs that the survey team of residents are able to do in real time. The rest are the ones that we're working with those licensed plumbers and electricians and other groups. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because, in our work with Seth Low, this is what came up time and time again, which is what can we do now? And this is our second year of CA. And we have a data and a funder partner, United Healthcare, who is making referrals for their clients who have Medicaid. And so we actually recently just got 2 referrals for 2 residents that live in NYCHA. And so I believe the team, at least the update that I have, is the team was able to go in and do the survey 1 and the small fixes. The next step is working and collaborating with NYCHA on that second piece, on these kind of bigger fixes, because we know that NYCHA, unlike a smaller building or like a private home, is a more complex system. There's unions and there's more kind of folks to be working with and collaborating with. But the big question we have is, we know that this model is great. We know there's an opportunity to collaborate with NYCHA. We know that there's going to be a lot of figuring out how that works. But we're excited because we think this has a huge potential in helping for that short-term need so we can think about the long-term future. I think that's my last one. Yes.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your leadership and all the great work. But what I really liked was how involved the residents were. I'm curious, how were the initial 10 residents even identified and brought into the program?
Sure. Here, let me actually start. And I can always pull up the slide deck if anyone needs to see anything, but just so it's easier to see everybody. Well, so the way the team was actually recruited was in the beginning, I mentioned we had a couple of those initial community open houses and events we did in coordination with the resident association. From there, we actually met a gentleman who had, been a part of Seth Low for years, actually has a youth organization. And so he mentioned he had some people in mind. And so we worked with him and a couple others and the resident association to kind of put out a call to people who were interested in community ambassadors. And so we then did an info session, we did a group interview, and then we did individual interviews, and we were able to find some folks that were, committed and wanted to help. And so we had a big interest, but we were able to fund 10 individuals.
That's really wonderful. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Asha, if I
Art-
may, I can't help but this really strikes home. When I was very young, I was a member of what was then called the Brownsville Boys Club. And I grew up at East 94th Street and Linden Boulevard. And I think this really is terrific. And anything we could do, please let me know.
Thank you.
That really is your old stomping ground, right, Bart?
There is.
So if I may, Bart, so just FYI, we're connected with this effort and with Noel through Roseanne Haggerty, that you and I have met on numerous occasions and whom I meet with every other week to talk about engagement efforts. So Noel comes to us through Roseanne, and we're very happy about it. So thank you.
Thank you, Edna. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Noel? Excellent.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. I had no idea that Noel would be presenting today. I did not see the agenda until today, honestly. And it is refreshing because I actually worked for Roseanne and when it was Common Ground in Community Solutions in the Brownsville Partnership almost 15 years ago, when they started out with the healthy homes side of it with the partners out of Australia. And so it's refreshing to see the work that you're doing so many years later. And to Bart, Greg Jocko Jackson took over from where you all left off at the Brownsville Boys Club. And so it's heartwarming. So thank you. I had no idea.
Thank you so much. Okay, and next, I believe we have Resident Association President Manny Martinez on the line. I've asked him to give an update on his thoughts on resident engagement from his vantage point. And if you could educate us also, Manny, on some of the background and history as it relates to the obligations for resident engagement under the HUD provisions. Manny, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. First off, I apologize for my tardiness, but actually the reason why I'm late is because of me fulfilling my role as a district chair in dealing with 2 gas outages that is currently affecting 2 different developments in 122 different households that have no gas and will not have gas for months due to the resolution. And so to speak on what Asha was just saying about the responsibilities in regards to the regulations, now we represent at a jurisdiction level, right? In order, before you get to the jurisdiction-wide level, you do the resident council. And so let me give you a history of, not a history, a rundown of how public housing residents are represented by themselves, by their peers, by their neighbors in this Section 9 public housing system. And this is why it's so powerful and why this works. So we are, by mandate, elected by the community to represent our community to the housing authority in order for us to be able to put input on operations, to put input on how day-to-day ongoings go, and for us to be able to represent certain outstanding issues, deficiencies, and so on to the, to the local development. Then, as an incentive, not incentive, to further empower that representation, the resident councils of a public housing jurisdiction, any jurisdiction, and this belongs to every public housing across the country, they are able to now come together to organize a jurisdiction-wide resident council. Now, both of these organizations are separate. The local resident council, the one that represents their community, is created by the members of the community. The jurisdiction-wide is created by those resident councils. The purpose of the jurisdiction-wide is to, 1, identify problems on a larger scale, to support the resident councils with their local representation and issues that they're having problems communicating, and also to put input into housing policy. Now that is very key and violating that or obstructing that can be very detrimental when we're talking about housing policy that affects, especially here in New York City, 500,000 people. Now, mind you, this is a city population that would be the second largest city in New York State. And for any obstruction of this type of representation, any obfuscation of the regulations will have a significant impact as it currently is now. But before I get to that, the narrative, just an example of what was done today. We're talking about 122 households. So we sat down, we identified what the steps are in the resolution, a timeline, the agencies that would be involved, how we can win the hearts and minds of the residents in order to get their buy-in, because their participation in this resolution is very critical. The fact that we have the reputation and the trust in the community for us to be able to expedite as much as possible this resolution is very key and is an example of why this works. Now, currently in NYCHA, and we have some outstanding folks right now that work for NYCHA at multiple levels in NYCHA, from the ground all the way up to the executive levels. But it appears that there has been some confusion where they're now trying to engage the jurisdiction-wide resident council as a resident council, and they have blocked representatives of the jurisdiction-wide resident council, such as myself, from meeting with NYCHA, with NYCHA-led meetings. They have blocked us from meeting, which now on just my district alone, and there's 2 other districts along with mine that have been banned from representing. I have 10,000 households in my particular district that now is not being represented on the policy-wide level. And then I believe it's a combined total of like 60 or 75,000 households when you put in the other 2, about 50,000 households when you put in the other 2 districts that have been banned. And they're doing this because they have attempted to treat the jurisdiction-wide resident council as a resident council, because they don't want to fulfill the MOU that goes to every independent resident council. They want the MOA. Now, let me explain these terms. A MOU is a memorandum of understanding. There's a mandate in the 964, 24 CFR 964, specifically 964-18, section 10, that states that there must be every 3 years a MOU with each resident council. Now, NYCHA has created an MOA with the jurisdiction-wide resident council, which has been suggested by HUD, but is not a mandate, not for the jurisdiction-wide. NYCHA is now attempting to use that MOA as the resident council MOU for each resident council that we have. That's 300 resident councils, almost 300 resident councils that we have that don't have an MOU. Now, currently, them banning me and 2 of my other colleagues and restricting that representation at the policy level, especially recently, where I was banned from a Marcia Fudge meeting by NYCHA through a claim of HUD, which to me is very concerning, because HUD sent a letter in response to an election claim stating that the election process is only specific to a resident council, not a jurisdiction-wide resident council. And so for HUD to state that I'm being banned because I'm not elected into an executive position, although I'm recognized as a district chair, which is a jurisdiction-wide position, to me is very confusing. And so now, to end this off, what is going to proceed further is, 1, we're going to make sure that these households that don't have gas get properly represented, and we organize collectively and make that collective and collaborative effort with NYCHA in partnership, the way it's supposed to happen. We're going to engage them. We're going to be successful. 2, we're going to have resident councils who are going to start demanding for their MOUs that have been beyond the 3-year mandate in the regulations. And that is right now what resident engagement is supposed to be. Us being able to organize and empower our community. And by not going backwards, we don't have to start from, you know, the first protest. We've had people who protested for us. Section 9 today, and I will end it with this, Section 9 today did not start in 1937 with the Housing Act. It started in 1969 when residents in St. Louis who were being harassed by the public housing authorities and being charged excessively in rent with rent that they didn't have. They did a 9-month rent strike that got the attention of Senator Edward Brooks, who had advocated for a bill that put the 25% household income rent limit into legislation, which also then resulted in resident management, resident councils, and jurisdiction-wide resident councils in the structure of Section 9 that we have today. And that is what we're fighting for. 1969, these are civil rights era legislation that we are fighting for. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manny, so much for giving us that update and lessons. And thank you also for your leadership as a resident leader. It's critical, as you said, that residents have a voice. And there is this set structure through the resident council, through the jurisdictional wide body. So we hope that all gets its full recognition. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I do. Manny, you know that I have a great deal of respect for you. And I also have a great deal of commitment to residents being listened to. I'm not sure this is the venue for us to talk about everything you've raised, but you and I and others should talk. I'd like to better understand what you're saying because they're issues that are important to us. And so let's get together after this is done.
Excellent. Thank you, Bart. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Excellent. Well, thank you, Manny. We really appreciate you.
I'm sorry. I always try to click on.
Oh, okay, go ahead, please.
I would encourage, so I get, and Manny, you know, I get all of the emails and the correspondences between HUD, PIH team, and NYCHA, resident engagement, resident services. And so like to your point, Bart, I think it would be helpful to just have an actual meeting to get a clear understanding of what the, not discrepancies, of just what the difference of opinions is between all agencies. And so Bart, I would love to be able to have us just all in a room, and Manny, to just be able to kind of understand that and see how we could move forward, because I've been seeing this back and forth for quite some time.
I'll take the obligation of setting that up. So I think that is the right next step.
Excellent.
I want to thank you both for that. And just in the last night, and forgive me, I didn't mean to overstep. I was just basing off of line 53 of the Federal Monitor Agreement, which states that in consultation, we was going to set up the compliance departments that would ensure NYCHA maintain federal, state, and local laws.
I wasn't suggesting you overstepped. I was suggesting I want to hear more.
Excellent. Okay. Well, we will have a follow-up meeting. Thank you so much, Bart. And thank you again, Manny. So next I wanted to open the floor to all of our members. I know everyone has been working hard in different vantage points. As I've mentioned in prior meetings, we do have a CAC Safety and Security Subcommittee meeting that meets every other week and works hard in between those meetings to make sure that we're making progress as it relates to issues regarding safety and security, and just reaching across the table interagency to assist and support one another. So I'm really, really pleased that there has been a lot of progress. And really appreciative for the hard work that Chief Secreto from NYCHA and our representatives from FDNY and NYPD and the NYCHA Monitor team, our field investigators, joined that call as well. So with that, I would like to turn the microphone to our FDNY representative, Chief Thompson, please.
Good evening, everybody. Just a quick FDNY update. We're currently working on providing all EMS unit and line officers, including medics, EMS key fobs, which will reduce the amount of, it should reduce the amount of access to buildings for our EMS units. We are currently going through our ongoing learning management system training. That was the production video that we put out. It's an informational video for all firefighters and fire officers regarding the use of the key fob and what to do when it doesn't work. We are also, as always, we're constantly in contact with NYCHA, and we're redistributing keys that are damaged or lost, which is happening pretty regularly. A couple times a week, it seems. And we've now been able to, I've now been able to obtain access. So I'm working on a hard key distribution for all our fire units. So buildings that don't have the key fobs, the frequency operated buttons, our units will now, we're identifying by address, and with us, addresses go to call boxes, and we're going to try and work on distributing keys to our first alarm assigned units, including, we haven't ironed it all out, but it looks like our first alarm assigned units for that particular location with a backup key distributed to myself, so it can be replaced, similar to the fobs. And that's pretty much it. There are other things that we are working on together as part of the safety and security behind the scenes. And, that's it. I hope everyone's having a wonderful summer.
Thank you so much. And thank you for literally rolling up your sleeves and digging in to these important projects, and the progress that the keys and key fobs have made, and the distribution to all the units throughout the city has really been tremendous. I see a thumbs up from Bart. Do we have any other questions or comments? Excellent. Well, we look forward to further updates in our subsequent meetings. And we also thank you for joining. We know that you had a number of conflicts, so we appreciate your dedication to this committee meeting. Next, I would like to give the microphone to James Secreto from NYCHA, please. Still on. I know he had been on.
Yeah, he's on. You're on mute, Chief.
About now?
Okay, we can hear you now.
All right.
Okay, please proceed. Thank you.
I pressed a button and I lost my screen, but as long as you can hear me, I guess I'm good.
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay. The last time we spoke, the authority-wide safety plan came up, and I understand that Lauren Gray is going to do a presentation before the monitor, I guess this week, maybe Friday or something like that.
Yeah, she's going to do it on Friday at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay. So, I mean, as I told you guys, I think in an email, Asha, that it's complete, but I think they're waiting for one thing to be clarified, whether or not the union members have to walk the buildings with Office of Safety and Security people, and anyone else who's doing this walkthrough with us, whether it's resident leaders or anyone else that's coming with us. So I think legal is looking to clarify that part of the workplace violence law, New York State Department of Labor. That's what this walkthrough is based from. So I guess Lauren will outline that to you guys on Friday. I don't know if there's anything else you want to hear from me about that, but she's supposed to be meeting with you guys on Friday. The other thing was the Metro North, an updated safety plan. I've been tasked with updating that, and I will have more information. I will have that completed by Friday. But some of the things that's going on there, is drug sales. I've been in contact with Dan Campbell from the narcotics division of Manhattan North Narcotics, Captain Maneri from the PSA, Erenice Tavares from NYCHA, Paul Silvers from our CCTV unit, and the TA president, Stanley Johnson, in touch with him as well about what's going on over there. And we're gonna step up what was in the initial plan, but also the narcotics has made a big arrest up there of one of the main players. So that should help us, in the long run. And unfortunately, and I used to hear this when I was in the police department, that when there's a long-term plan going on, a long-term case, people don't see the effects of it, right away. And as you're looking at the place, it's a mess, but it will get better. I assure you of that. And the inspector from Manhattan North has assured me, and we got some plans in place. I don't know if I want to go into all of them on this call necessarily.
No, that's fine. Please
All
don't.
right. Okay. And then again, we spoke about this as well. The Tenant President Johnson, he complained about the lighting in the rear of 345 East 101 over the basketball courts. So in talking to Mr. Veras, they're going to do a lighting survey and get on that issue of the lights by the basketball court. He expressed that that was dangerous for his members, tenant members coming home at night from work, and so that something that we're going to update, fix. And then the parking was another issue. I think Dan might have talked about it in the last call. The people parking in the development parking lot in the rear of the buildings. So what we've asked and what the tenant leader has asked, tenant president, is that we put some no parking signs there, and then we'll start towing. But so far, and talking to Captain Maneri at PSA 5, they've issued 50 summonses in the last month. In July, they issued 50 summonses around those developments for parking. So, but until we tow somebody's car, I think people are going to continue to park there. And what's the other thing? Oh, the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force. All right, I was tasked with representing NYCHA on that task force. And on Monday, there was a press conference a week ago. There was a press conference at City Hall with the Mayor Adams, Governor Hochul, Tish James, Bronx DA Clark, Darcel Clark, Brooklyn DA Eric Gonzalez, and the violence interrupters and others. The Commissioner Caban was there, Commissioner Molina was there from Corrections, and they rolled out this plan of this gun violence prevention task force had been convened a year ago, and we've been meeting probably bi-weekly it was, and there also was some town hall meetings across the boroughs, and the outcome was this report that came out, and basically what it's going to do is commit $500 million to the precincts that are generating the violence throughout the city. And the rollout was in the initial 6 precincts, the 40, 42, 44, 47, 73, and 75. And what the focus is not going to be on more policing or more law enforcement. It's going to be on resources like job training, enhanced community centers, playgrounds, housing. And so with those things, with this press conference on last Monday, they spoke about, how this is going to be the beginning, these 6 precincts, and then others are to follow in the second and third waves, where additional resources are diverted to these precincts that, because when you look at the violence, a lot of them are in need of resources and funds, not necessarily more policing and arrest and that type of thing. So basically that's it.
Thank you so much. That's a lot, Bart.
Yeah, I'm going to take the privilege of putting on another hat. Chief, I'm the president of the Police Athletic League in New York, and we have facilities in many of those precincts, and we want to be helpful. And I would love for you to talk to me about how we can contribute to fighting this violence.
Okay. And you follow some notable former presidents of the PA. I think Bob Morgenthau was one of them as well, right?
I'm in a different category, but I appreciate the suggestion.
Okay, all right. I was at a birthday celebration for him, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, and he spoke about how he got started, with PAL, and he talked, and man, I think the celebration was his, I don't know, 90-something birthday, but he was smart as a whip. He was rattling off names of people that he got to be involved, Walt Frazier, Joe Namath, blah, blah. And he says, listen, I locked up enough young people that I felt I had to give back. So,
Well, I was a prosecutor too, and I feel the same way. There's a better approach to these things. And next year, PAL celebrates its 110th anniversary. So anything we can do, and we've got the facilities in at least 4, I think, of those precincts. So we should talk.
All right, I will take you up on that.
Excellent. Well, and Paul is doing such important work too. So I love that. Alika, please.
I just wanted to just throw out there too that President Biden and Vice President Harris, I wanted to say in 2021, issued a charge for all of the federal agencies that have some kind of role to play in public safety. He charged all the agencies with coming up with a plan to address gun violence. And HUD, clearly one of the agencies, because of all of our properties, recently announced a community violence intervention program. And under this particular initiative, we've been looking at ways to address and provide resources to our properties, the folks like property managers and our PHAs. And over the 4th of July weekend, we had 25 individuals shot in Baltimore and DC, and that clearly caught the attention of the president. And the White House immediately called HUD, called FPM, and asked us, like, what is going on? What are we doing? And so there is a laser-focused initiative now. It was before years ago. We had funding for gun violence prevention, gun buyback programs, working with the DA's office, but now there's another focus under our community violence intervention program. And so they're looking at the stats around shootings. Every time there's a shooting, we have to send it in. We have a tracker, and it's really to figure out what can we do, what kind of funds and resources can we assist with outside of the capital repairs and everything else that's going on. But what can we do as an agency to assist the property managers around public safety? So that's another initiative, and nothing to report yet, but I know that we just started working groups across the entire country.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear of that important initiative. And speaking of stats, we're pleased to have Captain Charles Herron join us from our representative from NYPD. He's an executive officer of PSA number 8. And if you could please just share the current status of the stats as it relates to NYCHA. And we don't need all of the stats, but just the high level trends, please.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to bore you with all the stats across the board, but we'll go through some of the 7 majors. Good afternoon, everybody. Captain Herron from PSA 8. So total index crimes, which is the 7 majors for year-to-date numbers, I'll go through. That consists of murder, rape, robbery, felony assaults, burglary, grand larceny autos. So for the year-to-date, housing citywide is up 3.2%, 115 incidents, 3,710 versus 3,595 last year. With that being said, that's really being driven. The difference is really being driven by grand larceny autos, GLAs. It's up 133 incidents, 323 from 190 last year. A lot of that's driven from social media challenges. We were having Hyundais and Hondas stolen throughout the city. The NYPD has done numerous outreaches to residents of these high areas that are getting these types of cars stolen, and they've held events where they're encouraging people to get anti-theft devices, and we're also providing Apple AirTags to the owners of certain cars that are the highest stolen ones, so that we can track these criminals and try to get them locked up. The problem with the GLAs, it's a lot of the younger crews and younger kids, and what they're doing is they're stealing the car, and then they drive around and they go to robberies, and then they dump off the car. So that also kind of affecting the robbery numbers. So, a lot of times these crimes are very hard to catch. They do them quick. It's real quick. So that's one of the incidents we're seeing. So we encourage, if you can get the information out to the residents and stuff like that about the anti-theft stuff, tracking device. I know, might help them get their car back. Car still might end up getting stolen, but at least we can, now we can start holding people accountable and start making arrests and stuff like that with these individuals, because they are causing problems throughout the city. Happy to report that shooting incidents in the housing citywide is down 32%, 32.9%. So we've had 98 shootings year to date. From last year was 146, so down 48 incidents. So we're trending in the right direction there. A lot of this stuff is technology, targeted policing, and video cameras, and getting people that are doing these shootings, holding them accountable, putting them behind bars, and working closely with the district attorney's office. So we are seeing a decrease in shootings, year to date, and we're trending in the right direction there. So that's good news. Another trend we're seeing in housing is burglaries. We always not necessarily residential burglaries, although I'm sure there's significant amount of those, but a lot of them are storage rooms. So if we could work with NYCHA somehow to try to secure these storage rooms, we do get a lot of burglaries. They go in, they take a lot of expensive tools and stuff like that. I know PSA 8 recently has a trend where I think it's like 7 or 8 incidents throughout the housing developments. It's usually 1 or 2 people that resurface and start doing these burglaries. So if NYCHA could take a look into the housing developments, the storage areas and stuff like that, and make sure we can, if there's cameras, with the legal team, however they can secure these rooms a little bit better, so that we can kind of try to get these burglary numbers down. Year to date for burglaries, we're up 7.7%, 323 incidents this year compared to 300 last year. Robberies citywide, just give you the robbery numbers, they're down 20 incidents, 574 robberies throughout NYCHA, compared to last year was 594. So down 20 incidents, down 3.4%. So those are some of the major, numbers that we're looking at. And those are some of the trends that are going on right now. Also, the NYPD, they do a lot of social media stuff, other than also like personal interaction, which, we're out there with the community all the time, but we do a lot of stuff on social media with crime prevention tips, the GLA tips and stuff like that, and how to go about protecting yourself from grand larceny crimes and scams and stuff like that for members. So we encourage people to subscribe on Twitter or Facebook to the NYPD, and then their local receipts as well, because they get out a lot of important information. So we try to encourage the residents and stuff like that, with everybody's assistance here, to become involved with stuff like that, so they can get the important information out to people. So
Thank you so much, Captain, for those updates, and for some of those public safety announcements as well. So unfortunately, but fortunately, one of my friend's sons, his Hyundai was stolen from Manhattan and found in the Bronx, and they were able to find it because he had a well-hidden Apple AirTag in the car. And that's how
yes.
Yeah, and that's exactly how they were able to trace it.
Yeah. That's good.
And it looked like some young people had taken it for a joyride or other perhaps nefarious purposes. But he was able to recover the vehicle. So thank you for that. And also thank you. We have been attending several of the family days, and we see the PSA officers there, and really interacting with the residents and everyone, having a good time at family day. So please send our thanks to your officers as well.
Well, thank you. Appreciate
hard work that they do, and their important presence as well. And with that, I wanted to turn to Miss Nancy Ortiz, who had joined us on the phone. I know you also do a lot of work, Nancy, in the safety and security sphere. Do you have any updates for us? Nancy, if you're there, you're on mute. And while we wait for Nancy, I wanted to turn to Mr. Gross and Mr. Hall, our resident presidents. Do either of you have any updates?
I was just gonna make a suggestion, and I didn't know if the federal monitor, when they have these meetings, is it possible that they can automatically contact all of the TA presidents through emails just to make them aware of the upcoming meetings?
We do that already for our community meetings. An email does go out to all of the resident association presidents who have contact information with NYCHA. We get those updated lists, and we do auto send the invites and the links. And then when we are having the community meetings for a particular borough, we do personally call the resident association presidents in each borough so that they know that they're invited. And our next meeting is going to be in the Bronx. Heidi, if you could please flash that information while we turn to Mr. Hall or Mr. Gross or
Well, Mr. Hall,
Ortiz.
are those the meetings that you're asking about? Because I want to make
Yes.
sure you, okay, good. 'Cause
Yes,
You certainly should be getting the notification. Yep.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Run it back.
Excellent. So we'll leave that up while Mr. Gross, do you have any updates for us? Good to see you.
Yes, just I would like to ask, maybe it's gonna be a smart idea if we have a gun buyback program in the NYCHA development. That will help eliminate guns in the night. Let's hope with our developments. As you know, we suffer from multiple shootings throughout the NYCHA portfolio. And as well for a HUD, I think this is the Secretary of HUD.
Wait, Mr. Gross, before you move on, I'm curious from Captain Harron's perspective, have there been any recent gun buyback programs that you're aware of?
I think not within not that I'm aware of within like a housing development that they usually do them. I mean, maybe down to like 1 PP or something. I'm not sure exactly where they come from.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a gun buyback program is something the monitor should be doing, frankly. We could talk to others about doing it but I think that's a little, I'm prepared to extend my jurisdiction as much as possible, but buying back guns, I really is not what we should be doing.
No, this is for the NYPD, just for a safer night.
Right.
Nothing that.
Yeah.
Also, what we can do, we have the secretary here. We should try to impose tougher penalties if somebody shoots a NYCHA or has an illegal firearm in NYCHA. I think with that, we will eliminate a lot of incidents in NYCHA. Innocent bystanders should get shot. This have to go probably to a federal level, or HUD should even campaign, have better, even put in more laws in the books. If we find somebody with a gun, automatically he is gonna get evicted, lose the apartment. And the problem is, a lot of times with the incident, it takes for years for NYCHA should go in court and try to get rid of the residents. We have to do a policy expediting procedure.
You know, Mr. Gross, I'm going to dig down into my days as a prosecutor, and it's a lot of days ago, but there are state, city, and federal laws which enhance the punishment if certain activity is conducted within a certain number of feet of a school or a synagogue or a church. And maybe what we should just do is look at the law that exists now, because frankly, if you take most of the boroughs in New York, it's hard to be more than 100, 500 feet away from a school, a church, or a synagogue. So maybe we should be approaching the DAs about that and seeing if those enhanced penalties might be appropriate. So it's a good point you make, and remind me of old times.
Yeah.
I just wanted to just add in real quick to Mr. Gross that when I was in the council, the district attorney's office as well as the AG's office did gun back programs in collaboration with community-based organizations, the local precincts and the churches. We found when we did gun back programs in community centers within NYCHA property, we did not see a lot of guns being turned in because no one wanted to come down from their buildings or across the parking lot with a gun on NYCHA property and turn something in. But when we did it in close proximity to the developments with a local faith-based organization, those were way more successful. So I just wanted to just put that out there so that you don't try to do something on NYCHA property.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, that's
Good point.
that's what I was going to say. Yeah, usually with the gun buyback programs, it's usually the church is involved with them. It's community affairs and the property clerks division, and they organize it. And they do have them. I've seen recent ones. I'm just not aware of any over on my end in NYCHA recently in PSA 8 up north here. But I know I have seen them. You know, they have several of them throughout the year. You know, they usually have a bunch of them. So.
Yeah, but this is also a good moment where perhaps our NYCHA representatives can coordinate for the outreach effort when such programs might occur to make sure that the word is getting out widely. Excellent and good point, Mr. Gross. Alika, did you want to make another comment, or was your hand up from before? Okay. Okay, and Ms. Ortiz, are you able to come off mute? Just want to circle back. If you wanted to speak, please feel free to unmute. And with that, Heidi, could you please, and Floretta, thank you so much for all of your help this evening. If you could put back the screen with the upcoming meetings, please. Okay, so we have our next meeting is on Tuesday, September 12th. That's the Bronx Community Meeting. All residents from all of the boroughs are invited, but the residents from the Bronx will be our VIPs, which means that they will have the microphones first for any comments or questions that they would like to make to the monitor or the monitor team as it relates to the pillar issues in the agreement. And then we'll have our next convening of this committee, the Community Advisory Committee, on Tuesday, October 17th. And as always, please don't feel like you have to wait for one of these meetings. Feel free to email us or call anytime, and to visit the Monitor website for more information. The NYCHA our NYCHAmonitor.com is the website, and the email is monitor@NYCHAmonitor.com. And we have a toll-free phone number and a regular phone number, 347-809-5555, or toll-free 844-309-6080. So please keep in touch. Please reach out anytime, and please join us for our Bronx community meeting. And please save the date for our next CAC meeting in October. With that, I will turn it back to you, Bart, to close us out, please.
I really have nothing more to add. Just a question. The meeting on September 12th is an in-person meeting, right? It's not a remote. Am I correct?
It is in person.
Good. Yeah. Well, I like those better. I mean, these remote meetings work very well, and this group works very well. But meeting generally with the community, I prefer to have the in-person meetings. So I have nothing to add. I think this is a very productive meeting that we had today. I'm glad we didn't postpone it just because it's August.
Excellent, thank you. And you're right, Bart, we had an in-person meeting in Queens. We've revamped the in-person meetings, and we were in Queens last month, and we had a really productive meeting with the residents in Queens, and we're looking forward to meeting in person with the residents on the Bronx next month.
Yes.
So thank you all for your hard work and participation. This is a voluntary group, and joining us late in the evening during August is a valiant effort on all parts. So thank you so much. Have a good night.
Right, and we'll follow up. We took good notes. We'll follow up. Thank you.